I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, February the 15th, brought to you in part by National Beef Wire, your best news source for news, information, and anything about the cattle business, including real-time market prices, and especially on channel 19. If you go to channel 19 at nationalbeefwire.com, you can see real-time prices coming through the day just as they are, coming from sale barns all across the country. We've got over 100 sale barns on there, and a lot of information coming in as fast as those cattle can go through the ring, and a lot of that information shows up before the cattle even get pinned back. If you want to look at the feeder flash report on there, go to channel 3. But there's a lot of channels on that National Beef Wire that you can check out, and I think you'll really enjoy it. The Crippling Cold, I tell you what, I don't ever remember, or it's been, I guess, seems like it was always colder years ago, but it's been a long time since I remember a cold snap that was this widespread. I mean, it covered the entire continental United States, and and shutting things down. I tell you what, here in the Texas Panhandle, it was, I think we had a high for 5 degrees on Sunday, but your lows overnight were well below zero. I tell you what, cattle are not gaining anything out there, and especially up in the northern plains and Midwest, they've had really cold temperatures, 20, 30 below regular temperatures. And I tell you, cattle are just burning up all of their energy trying to stay warm and going backwards, guys. And so the board jumped up big on Friday. The board loves a storm normally, and it did again this time. So seeing that big storm come across, just a lot of weight loss there. And even though with the market's up and we're seeing a lot of activity in the markets, and it looks like we're ready for a big upswing, that doesn't help, guys, because the pounds add up a hell of a lot quicker than the dollars do, and when you're losing weight on cattle, it's not a good deal. It's not a good deal at all. But many sales are canceled. All your high volume Monday sales are canceled. Oklahoma City, Joplin, neither one of them are having a sale all this week. OKC West, Reno, Oklahoma's canceled all their sales for this week. Just numerous sales, and you better check if you're thinking about going to a sale barn and marketing some cattle or buying some. You better check and see if that sale barn's open this week, because lots of them are shut down. But you get up where it's the coldest, and that's where you might see one open. I'll tell you what, those thick-blooded guys up in the Dakotas and in Nebraska and places, if they can have a sale, they're going to go ahead and have a sale. They're used to it. They know how to deal with that cold. But you get in the southern plains, it's mostly due to your roads. They just we don't have the equipment or the know-how, evidently, to take care of the roads down in the southern plains here, and it just shuts everything down. It gets so slick, and it was bad that way all through even South Texas and around this over the weekend, and that's probably what's holding things up as much as anywhere. But a lot of guys are kind of calved during this, and they call it spring calving, but it's really winter calving. And a lot of them haven't gone full bore into calving, but it's amazing how many people are trying to calve heifers out in this, and that's the worst. They need the most attention, and they're in there doing it right here in the worst part of the worst winter we've had for quite a while. This several day stretch here anyway. But guys are saying, man, why are people trying to calve these heifers out? Well, it takes the heifers longer to breed back, so they like to get those calved out first, and then hopefully they'll get kind of close to on track with the rest of their herd. They're going to have lighter calves probably, so that gives those runt calves time to catch up with the other calves. They're going to be born a little bit later, and some guys just want to get the heifers out of the way before they start calving the bulk of their herd out. But I tell you what, it's a miserable time to do it, and guys will probably think twice about doing it. Next year they'll wait a little bit to turn that bull out, but I tell you what, as short memoried as most of you cattle people are, they'll probably just go ahead and do it again. But I tell you what, that's what we're probably losing most of, is these baby calves, and mostly out of these heifers, of what we're losing. You don't just lose a whole lot of cattle, and due to the cold, the cattle are pretty tough. If you're feeding them and you're giving them enough nutrition, and water is very important. And it's hard to get water to cattle when your tanks are froze solid. But you got to figure out how to deal with that and get water to these cattle. It's as important in the cold as it is anytime, guys. And they can make their own heat, and maybe give them a windbreak, and they handle it pretty good. But I was listening to rural radio here in the Texas Panhandle there late last week, and I had to chuckle. They had some guys, some Aggies on there from Texas Extension on there, and then asking about the effects of cold weather on cattle, and the doctor on there got on there and said that they handle it pretty good till it gets below 18 degrees. Well, shit, it was below 18 degrees everywhere across the country. But I've took care of cattle, and most of you guys listening here, 10, 20 below. If the wind is not severe and just cutting them in two, and it's not wet, they can handle it pretty good. And when it's that cold, it's not likely going to be too wet around, because sure, nothing's thawing out, nothing's muddy, everything's hard. But cattle are pretty tough, pretty rugged. It's harder on the guys trying to take care of them than it is the cattle. I was talking to a friend of mine. He was feeding his cattle in 0-degree weather, here over the weekend, and he said he was struggling out there to get things fed, and the cattle were bucking and playing and playing grab ass out there, and the calves were running around with their tails up, and they were actually enjoying this weather. But they're not gaining any weight in it, because it just takes so much of that energy to keep them warm that they spend most of it. And when you see cattle shivering, then they're really melting fast. But that's hard on the industry as a whole whenever you're losing as much weight as we're losing here during this cold spell. But we get to the mid part of this week, at least in the southern plains, it's going to start warming back up to normal temperatures, and then by the end of the week, the northern area is going to get back to normal too. But Shasta Livestock had their last sale on Friday, and I tell you what, the weather held everything up, and it ruined my trip going too. My connecting flight out of Houston, of all places, they had ice on the runway, and couldn't make that flight to get down there to catch the flight to Sacramento. So spoiled my whole trip, and instead of going out there and getting to hang out with Ellington Peak and all the good people out there around Shasta Livestock in Northern California there, I was huddled up like most everybody else was, trying to stay warm. But I would have a lot rather been out in California over the weekend. So I hate it that I missed that. I did have the timing right. I tuned in to DV Auction right as they were getting ready to start the bulk of the feeder cattle, and got to hear Ellington give a good talk there. And I tell you what, for a man of his stature there, I think 92 years old, and still just as sharp as a tack, and all the things he's done in his life, and ran that sale barn there, built that sale, ran that sale for nearly 60 years, and now closing that sale. And it wasn't like they had to close it. They had over 4,000 head for their last sale there. They just they built up that Western video market so big that takes up a lot of their time, and weren't really paying as much attention to that sale barn as probably what it needed, or just running themselves ragged trying to do it. But they've got some town issues there also coming in on them, but they're still going to be having the Western Video Market regular sales there for the near future, and they're still on that facility there. They'll have the offices there, but just won't be having the regular Friday sales anymore. But it was interesting as I was watching, and people sending me clips, and I'm sure you guys have seen it on social media. But the last cow that they had come through there actually got pretty excited, jumped up in the block, and everybody scattered, and it was everybody was kind of having a good time with it. But there was a hollering and cheering when it was all over, and everybody I talked to said they had a great time, and just hate to see that they're not going to be having the sales on Fridays in Shasta anymore. But I'll give you some quotes out of there in a minute when I get to my feeder cattle marketing quotes. Let's talk about the board for last week. February live cattle futures, Monday was down 15, Tuesday up 87, Wednesday down 132. Most of that was the delivery pressure. So, you know, we had several deliveries come in this past week. That is supposed to tighten that basis. Well, the way that it does it is it pulls the premium down on the spot futures for the traded month there, and it did what it was supposed to do. It pulled it down 132 on Wednesday, down another 80 cents on Thursday, and all your other traded months on live cattle were higher on Thursday. Just that delivery pressure coming down. But then Friday with the storm coming on and everything, and everybody's just really been bullish on this cattle market, waiting for it to break out. And when you got a big storm coming in like that, everybody knows about the weight loss and everything. It just popped that board. Friday's February live cattle were up $1.87, ending the week at $117.20 for February. That was 93 cents higher than the end of last week or the prior week. April ended the week at $125.17, $1.40 higher than it started out the week. March feeder cattle, Monday was down 82, Tuesday up $1.20, Wednesday up 85, Thursday off 35, and then Friday up $1.70, with March feeder cattle ending the week well above what cash is trading at 140.85. That was up $2.58 for the week. April at 144.72, up 252. We saw your grains kind of settle back down by the end of the week. March corn settling and ending the week at 538 3/4, and beans at 13.72 a bushel. Your fat cattle trade through Thursday, they had only had 54,300 head in your 5-area feeding region. That's not much, guys. And then didn't have a whole lot more cleanup on Friday. Really light trade. There was a lot of committed cattle for this time right in here. So your packers had already purchased those out. Some of them on contract, some of them tied up in a formula deal, but they're drawing from those cattle right now, and they don't need as many cash cattle. And we've just seen that grow and grow and grow over the last 15, 20 years, and that's why we don't have a very transparent market anymore, and why we don't have as much competition in your cash. But we've got to get minimum negotiated cash trade, guys, and we can get that this year. We can get it, and we need to get to work on it. But you look at your trade for last week, your live sales steers and heifers from 111 to 116.50, but mostly 114. But very few cattle selling off the market there, in your on your live sales there. Very few. But in the north, that would be steady to a buck higher, because they were a lot of 113 last week or the prior week. In the south, steady to firm on cash there on live sales. But your weighted average on live steers through Thursday was 113.87, and that was about 60 cents higher than the same point a week ago. But your dress sales range from 178 all the way up to 185, but mostly 180. And that would have been steady to $2 higher. And there was more cattle that sold over the market than there was off the market. And when you're talking about Iowa and places like that, that's pretty impressive, because even with some guys sloughing some cattle here and there was more cattle sold over that 180 than under, because our weighted average on dress steers was 180.37 through Thursday, and that was right at $1 higher. But a little bit of cleanup sales on Friday. Iowa, a couple thousand, but still only 20,700 for them, which would be kind of a normal trade for them. The Iowa, or the northern areas, saw a more normal volume than the southern areas, but man, it was really light in Kansas and Texas. But the few sales on Friday in Iowa, 112 to 115.40, but mostly 114. That was still your market, and some 180 to 182. Nebraska, 4,700 head on Friday, 25,600 head for the week, all at 114 and 180. Kansas just had a couple loads. Kansas only had 8,500 head through Thursday, and Texas only 6,300 head. Both of those would trip the triggers once again, even on NCBA's 75% of a robust market plan there. So they know that, I mean, we're tripping triggers almost every week on those. So why not just get behind mandated minimum negotiated cash trade? Why not get behind that? But I tell you what, your National Cattle Packers Association just does not have things in line with what the bulk of what your industry wants. You know, they're for animal ID. They're against cool. They're against mandated negotiated minimums on cash trade. You know, they're just opposites. So you know, and that's why you're seeing so much support for the referendum on the beef checkoff, and they've done it to themselves, guys. Box beef cutout values. Your weighted average for all of last week's sales. Choice cuts $233.77, down $1.54. That was close to what it was trading there at the end of the week. Selects also close to what they were trading at the end of the week, but your weighted average on all of last week's select cuts $220.70. That was down $2.34, but that's still pretty good for this time of the year. They're faring pretty well on the wholesale beef market. Your slaughter for last week, 611,000. Because we had a lighter Saturday than what we were expecting. Only 41,000 on Saturday, and we've been running 60 to 70. So that 611,000 for the week, that was down 42,000 from the previous week, but only down 10 from the same week a year ago. But now we've got one of those major scheduled shutdowns or darks in one of your plants there for maintenance. We've got one of those out of the way now. So we should be getting back to normal, and in fact having a lot heavier slaughter coming up this week if they can get the cattle to the plant and if they can get the workers there. But I tell you what, it is cold and snowy and just continues to be miserable, and will, you know, up through Wednesday or Thursday. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction ended the week at 137.17. That was up $1.75 for the week. Mostly all on late week gains, even though we didn't have very many sales going. But your cash feeders and your sales, the Southern Plains were steady to $2 lower up until Thursday. And when things just kind of hinged on Thursday, and they got better, even though the board was still down. We saw those deliveries. We could kind of feel this thing coming to us, and there was some positivity around, and then people knew about the storm coming. They figured that would give a boost on Friday. But Thursday and Friday sales were a lot better, even though a lot of them were closed. Northern Plains were unevenly steady till Thursday. That's when they got a lot higher. And then we had some of those big sales, Belle Fourche and some of them that come in for Thursday were better, and then the Friday sales, I'm going to give you some of those, were a lot better around. But your feeder calves were about the same. Your bigger calves, they sold just like the heavier cattle, but your stocker weights continue to be in high demand even though we're in the dead of winter. You got guys that are wanting to get cattle ready for early turnout on spring grass, and your stocker cattle steady to $3 higher. Just kind of hard to find them right now. But let's talk about some of your quotes from late last week. How about the last Shasta Livestock report? Merle Haggard Commission Company right there in Cottonwood, California. This is their last sale. And look at this report, and you can kind of look through there and see what you want to see. Now, mind you, this is way out west there in California, long ways from your commercial cattle feeding areas there. But included in this report was a load, 62 head, 677 pound steers, bring 148.50. That's an impressive quote for anywhere. And 69 head of 830 pound steers at 135.5. Way out there in California, and we want to congratulate the Peak family there. They had a big fundraiser whenever they broke there and gave the little speech there. They had a fundraiser for the Andy Peak scholarships. They raised a lot of money there. People were very generous. They had a standing room only crowd. I wished I could have been there. I would have loved to have been there for it. But tell you what, they had a hell of a good run, and they're not done at all. They're still handling country cattle and a lot of cattle on Western video market. So we'll see some more of the peaks, that's for sure. How about some of your quotes towards the end of the week and over the weekend? Eastern Missouri Commission Company in Bowling Green, Missouri. That's the Angels there, the Angel Brothers, and then Mike Van Manen. They run that sale, and they've been in the sale barn business forever there, but they had a really good sale, including some fancy replacement heifers, and this is be over on the eastern side of Missouri, right on the Illinois line, but had several little packages of replacement quality heifers ranging from 750 to 805 pounds. They bring 143 to 146.50. Wow. Big quote out of Burwell Livestock Market, Burwell, Nebraska. 58 head, 536 pound fancy steer calves at 181.50. But the best quote that I saw late last week or over the weekend, and your Zach Tran top quote for the day, come out of Winter, South Dakota, Winter Livestock Auction. 65 head, 832 pound steers, bring $140 smooth. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.